HeslinFigaro.com.
It's the same European mentality, which is, you know, these are our children, but at the same time, I could care less about them because they're not mine. You know,
well, you did have some feedback, sounds like.
Yeah, well, I do, but once again, I want everybody to take the opportunity to hear Dr. Umar and what he has to say, because once again, he has a lot of valuable information for a man that has traveled the world, and he really needs to make sure that the information gets out about his school, his movement, and what he's doing to better help our community and our family. So once again, beloved, I greatly appreciate it, but I don't want to hold any more time, and I thank you so much.
Well, no, thank you. Dr. Johnson, any feedback on what she just had to say? I think it's important, sis, that you give your feedback, and that's why Dr. Johnson is here, so that people can hear other people who are in the classrooms who are experiencing this as teachers, parents, and community members, you know, to actually say, what he's saying is correct. Would you agree with that, Mr. Johnson?
Oh, very much so, and I appreciate those words, and I think it's an excellent segue into that next topic that you wanted to cover, and that is how the black community and its gatekeeper organizations, as well as its elitist blacks, perpetuate the oppression of black people by working and aligning and identifying themselves with the power structure. For example, I work with superintendents on a regular basis, principals on a regular basis, politicians on a regular basis, people in the mental health field and in the legal system on a regular basis. I do a lot of work in prisons and jails. I love to go in there and speak to the inmates and speak to the youth, which I do for free out of the love of my heart. And I can tell you that at every step of the way, there's issues I see with the gatekeepers, the black people who are put in positions of symbolic authority, because they don't have much authority, symbolic authority to actually deflect responsibility away from the system. I mean, I've had so many issues with black principals who suspend and expel black boys who come from the same neighborhood that the boys they are now mistreating come from. I mean, issues with these black civil rights organizations. And I would agree that not all NAACP and Urban League chapters are dysfunctional or impotent. I wouldn't say that. There's a few that are very beneficial. But when you study the history of these organizations, both groups were founded by white folk to control the degree of progress that black people actually made in the civil rights movement. They fund you to run you. I will say it again. They fund you to run you. And it is going to be impossible for us to get to where we need to be if we keep on trying to use white-founded, white-funded civil rights groups to be the vanguard for the struggle. It is not going to happen because the hand that pays is the hand that rules.
But see, the key to that is when you make those kind of statements in general, the majority of NAACP are not funded by white people. They're funded by those that do fund them. I'm speaking for my organization here in Oklahoma City. So the bottom line is, when you don't know what different organizations are doing, then you don't know because you're not involved at that level. And if it was your organization, I'm going to say if it's Dr. Johnson's organization, 100% of nobody going to get involved in nothing. So with that in mind, whatever those numbers are, like I said, just yesterday we went out knocking doors in the community trying to promote involvement through the community to address the needs of the citizens. I'm speaking for him right here. I can speak for myself. And so when you say national organization, some of those might have done that as far as repression or keeping back. But the majority in general, that's not the motive, that's not the motto, that's not the theme, that's not the guidance, that's not what direct them at this point. Right now.
Okay, let me clarify, if I could. Quite familiar with the NAACP. I was a member of it, and I actually helped found a chapter of it. The national office, has the final say in what the local offices do. And if they do not agree with you, they will shut you down. And if you do not follow suit, they will remove you from office and replace you with someone else. I've seen it done to a lot of progressive NAACP and Urban League leaders on the local level who did want to fight, who did want to challenge the powers that be and go against the status quo. And the national office simply said, you will not do that. And if you continue, we will remove you. They do have the final say. You are not independent from the national office. And, I mean, that's true for any group. That's true for any group. But there's a difference when the national leadership of an organization is black versus white. And with the NAACP and the Urban League, that's the biggest contradiction. I mean, let's be honest now. What has black leadership really been doing for black folks for the past 35 years? I will tell you what they've been doing. Trying to get white people to accept them, number one, and number two, registering black voters for the Democratic Party so we could keep on re-electing white racist liberals to local office, state office, and national office. Black leadership is nothing more than a committee of the Democratic National Convention. That's all it is. We do not have an independent agenda for nothing, and whenever there's a black problem, the only thing you hear is register to vote so you can elect another white Democrat. That is not going to solve our problems. We need an independent black agenda that is not attached to the Democratic Party.
I have a question for you, Doctor.
Sure.
If by chance there's two parties, there's a Democratic Party and there's a Republican Party, and one is giving you kibbles and bits and one is shooting you in the street, you get the kibbles and bits till you do something different.
Sir.
You don't have to.
No, you don't. See, that's the difference. Address it, Mr. Johnson. That's the difference.
I disagree.
Let me interchime on that, and Mr. Johnson, I'll let you. Yeah.
Why are they giving you kibbles and bits? No. Find out. Why are they only giving you kibbles and bits? The reason the Democratic Party only gives black people kibbles and bits is because we have already committed our vote to them irrespective of the agenda. If Democrats know you're going to vote for them no matter what, of course you're going to get kibbles and bits because your vote is cheap. It's worth nothing. You guaranteed me your vote without even asking me to do anything for you. And as long
that's what a misnomer. That's what a misnomer. I got a question.
As Republicans know that black folks are going to vote Democrat, and as long as the Democrats know that black folk are not going to vote Republican, both parties will continue to ignore you because you have made your vote cheap.
You're exactly right. I'm going to chime in on this.
This is the point that you don't understand.
Wait.
If 100% of blacks did vote, they still couldn't put you in office. So we didn't put you in office to begin with.
Okay, Mr. Pruitt, hold on one second.
Who goes to office?
Hold on, Mr. Pruitt, hold on, because it's never about 100%. He's missing the point. Let me chime in here.
It's a high percentage. It's a high percentage.
Mr. Pruitt,
you make up 13% of the population.
Mr. Pruitt, can you hold on a second so that somebody else can hear? When we're talking over each other, people can't hear. What Mr. Johnson is saying and what I have continued to say to Mr. Pruitt and others like him, and I'm so glad that you're on the line because we had a conversation and a show on this on the relevancy of the NAACP, and it's always the same thing. You take what you can get, you take, till you can get better. You still have to sit down at the table with these individuals. That's why I started Blackout 2016. And you know what it said, Dr. Johnson, that until my vote is recognized for what it is, I'm holding it for ransom. And I'm not telling people not to vote or not to be a part of the process. Me personally, I'm an independent. Mr. Pruitt always says, well, how many independents do you know? I don't need to be a part of a group a part of an organization in order to make my voice heard, and that is the problem. We feel in order to be, which is what Martin Luther King first designed the Souls for the Polls all about, it was supposed to be a power move, to say that we have a power block, that now that we have all our votes together, we can change the democratic process. But what happened is that power play card turned into a pimping card, and whether Mr. Pruitt wants to admit it or not, is something that is happening all over the country, whether 100% people black vote or not. Just because you black doesn't mean that you understand the issues that black people face. You said it, he said it himself. If somebody offering you this, you're going to take this over this. And that is the mindset. They are so afraid to say, if you don't do me right, I don't want nothing at all. The mindset of, well, as long as you love me, hold on one second, as long as you, I'd rather, what's some of those old blues songs? As loving you is wrong, I don't want to be right. Half a man is better than no man at all, that Betty Wright mentality. When is it ever going to be a time in this country that you say it is not enough to take kibbles and bits? I'd rather starve and live on the street before I allow anybody to continue to pimp me or pimp my people.
Thank you.
You're being pimped right now when you allow yourself to think that an organization or an individual or certain folks can fix, change, and correct it. And if there's anything less than the masses, the education and information of the masses, you won't go get there no way. One organization ain't no book,
who wasn't going to get there?
Individual.
Who said they wasn't going to get there? I'm sure somebody said the same thing to Harriet Tubman. No, we getting there. It's just you not going there. You're comfortable.
No.
But I'm saying
you're missing it. You're missing it. We have how many elected officials do we have now compared to 50 or 60 years ago? The numbers are there. Some things
but they're
are
not
changing.
fighting on the right issues. It's worse. It's worse. Just because somebody's a Democrat.
In 2015.
Sir, just because somebody's a Democrat and because they're black doesn't mean that I support them. See, that's the problem with this pimpology mentality. You come into communities, you pass out church fans, you pass out fish fries, you pass out barbecues, and you think because you look like me that you represent my interests. If you pay attention to what Malcolm X said in 1965 with the Battle of the Bullet, you will see that I am all the tension has been focused on what the white man been doing, what the white man been doing. I want to know what the black elected officials have been doing, what they have been speaking on. And I'm not talking about just passing some law that requires a vote. It's a lot of influence that goes on outside of a vote. This I know because I work in politics. Where's the fundraising efforts? Are you calling up the same way you raise $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 a year to get in office? Do you raise $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 a year to do towards a school? Do you raise $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 a year to help your communities on your own? The answer is no. Across the board, it doesn't happen. There's some that do it and some that don't. I know politics real well. And if they pimp me, they'll definitely pimp the community. So let's not play around this conversation as if we don't know that there's influence that are in those seats that black elected officials do not use to better serve the community. Dr. Johnson, you can go now.
Yes, ma'am. I totally agree with you, Queen. I totally agree with you 110%. And this is an age-old conversation that we have been having in the black community, and it is between the progressives who are willing to sacrifice their relationship with white folk, they're willing to sacrifice their job, they're willing to sacrifice their personal security, and black folk who are not as trailblazing, black folk who are willing to crawl instead of walk. And that's an issue we've always had as a people. You look at Dr. King, he had to fight against elders in the Southern Christian Leadership Conference who thought he was being a bit too bold and brash with his civil rights agenda. You look at Malcolm, the same issue that caused him to fall out with Mr. Muhammad because Malcolm felt that more work should have been getting done on a grassroots level instead of just religious philosophizing. You see the same thing with Marcus Garvey and W.E.B. Du Bois, but W.E.B. Du Bois took issue with Marcus Garvey saying we got to fight for more than just the right to vote and the right to be seated next to white folk, and we're still dealing with it now. The problem is we got a lot of black folk who are actually being pimped by these white folk, who are being financed by them. They give them jobs, they give them titles, they give them local organizing places within a power structure, and black folk begin to identify with these little trinkets that the white folk give them because their ego is attached. See, your ego gets attached to being a ward leader. Your ego gets attached to being a part of some big white politician campaign, and now you're willing to sell the whole black community down the drain for 30 dirty pieces of silver because you like the little bit of light that the white person is shining on you.
I don't think a lot of them is getting the silver or the light and doing the things that some of them are capable and able and willing to do, whereas the masses are looking for, seeking someone out there to do the real work. And the real work still is going to have to be one of the things we have a tendency to disagree with. When you get through talking, you got to end up having dialogue. Dialogue, law, policy changes is what fix and correct things. And this has to do with that bill on color that the conversation had to do with didn't believe in rally, demonstrating, and protesting. It takes all of that and so much more. Anything less than what took place in Cleveland and took place in Baltimore, things would not change. It takes all of that and some. So it ain't no one organization. It ain't no certain mindset, certain attitude that's going to accomplish or achieve or master what we need as a people. It's going to take the difference of opinion as well as growth and progress moving forward, coming together more so than ridicule, prosecution,
it's
moving
not ridicule,
forward.
Mr. Pruitt is speaking the truth.
No,
but some people need to be ridiculed.
Every time we begin to hold accountable black organizations,
accountability,
people say, well,
100%.
you're blaming people. You're no, we're not. We're holding you accountable.
Accountability is 100.
Doesn't do what white folks want them to do. They hold them accountable. But whenever black folk want to hold black people accountable, oh, you're playing the blame game. Stop putting people down. Stop attacking people. But when white folks do it, it's called accountability. We're not ridiculing nobody. We're holding you accountability. If you stand up and step out and say that you represent the black community and that you're fighting for the black community, then you should be expected to be held to the highest standard of the behavior that you claim to be emulating.
That's right. Hey, once
100%.
again,
I support it.
No, Mr. Pruitt. Let's be honest about this again. Blackout2016.com. You're my best friend now, Mr. Johnson. I'm so glad that I took the time to listen to Hidden Colors, because you are exactly right. And I don't care if I'm standing one person solo. This is something that Black America. There is a segment in Black America that wants to hear this even more so than what Mr. Pruitt realizes. You know, he's a great friend of mine. We talk all day, every day, and we have this argument every day, all day, literally. And I tell him that this is what, there's a new segment that people want to hear this, and they want bold leaders that speak up. And although he may not be in it for the shine, most of the Black elected officials are. Most of the Black leaders are. All they're concerned about are the banquets and the accolades and the awards. And, you know, this is coming from, again, we can only speak from our own personal view. You know, I was an employer in Orlando, Florida. I put 300 people to work in the community. Not one Black elected official, when that contract was lost, no one said, let's make sure we continue to keep, you know, Black people working. Was I expecting them to do it? No. But it just doesn't happen. We fight, we take the easy issues. Let's talk about black-on-black crime. It's much easier for me to stand up there and talk about black-on-black crime rather than talking about police brutality. It's much easier to have a panel of inviting the police into the community to tell us how we need to behave better rather than holding the police accountable on Front Street. Almost a dozen women were raped here in Oklahoma City.
Talking about we need to build a better relationship with the police. How can Black people build a relationship with the exact same entity that has been designed to oppress them and deny them their rights? The purpose of the police is to intimidate the oppressed against seeking justice. That's why the police are there. You can't build no relationship with the police. That's like asking a woman who's been raped to build a relationship with her rapist, or somebody who's been stolen from to build a relationship with the thief. That is crazy. You never saw nobody ask the European Jews to build a relationship with the Nazis, but they want Black people to build a relationship with the police. And we said we're not doing that. We unapologetically African. We're going to stand up for what's right, and no Uncle Tom bootlicking Negro is going to make us take the line of least resistance, because that's gotten us nowhere in 50 years.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Love it.
So the use is, Doctor.
I'm not talking about you, Mr. Pruitt. I don't know you to judge you, my brother. But the NAACP
I'm not judging you, sir.
The NAACP been around for over 100 years. So there's a track record with the NAACP, and you and I both know that whenever there's a controversial issue involving Black people, the NAACP can always be found hiding under a rock.
Well, that's not true. That's not true. Right now, we're in the process of going to court right now. Because that's what I deal with 24/7. I deal with complaints every week. Where's the rock?
But that may be you in your activism, okay?
Right.
But what the NAACP will sanction is something totally different.
Absolutely.
They have never been the type of organization that has brought change to Black folk. They concern themselves with symbolic advances. They will fight to get more Black people on primetime television. They will fight to get the first Black mayor in a particular city. They fight for issues that only give the appearance. They never fight for substantial change on the grassroots level. And you and I both know, Mr. Pruitt, that the NAACP, one of its greatest criticisms is that it has only been focused on the upper echelon, talented 10% of Black people. They are only concerning themselves with the advancement of the bourgeoisie, National Association for the Advancement of Certain light-skinned colored people.
Well, like I say, it's okay to feel that way. That don't make it true. And if anybody benefited from it, we all benefited from it.
The talented 10th bourgeoisie group. Look at the leadership of the NAACP. Not one of them comes out of grassroots activism. Not one of them.
Born and raised in the ghetto.
It's a political stunt and a political game. Look at the NAACP Image Award. They spend millions of dollars on an Image Award. Why the NAACP don't have a school? Why the NAACP don't have a hospital? Why the NAACP ain't putting Black people to work? Why the NAACP ain't got airlines or submarines? Why the NAACP ain't got a distribution network? What is the NAACP doing to end mass incarceration? They only care about symbolic progress for bourgeois Negroes.
I think they're addressing every one of those issues you made mention of. Now, you just mentioned earlier in your conversation
what you wanted to give Black people independence away from the American political economic order. What are they doing? Nothing of substance.
How do you change that?
Black boys, what are they doing? poor medical care for black women, what are they doing?
Every area that you may mention,
what are they doing? You know what they're doing? They're registering voters. The NAACP's budget, more than 30% of the budget is spent voter registration. Are you serious? Millions of dollars to register voters where we need schools, we need jobs, and all y'all want to do is help another Democrat get elected to another office so they can ignore black people? Hell no, not this time.
And what you do is you speak.
Without that 30%, and without that registration, you'd be worse off than you are now.
No,
you don't have to accept
that's such a slave mentality.
Mr. Pruitt,
you hear that slave
you don't
mentality?
understand politics, sir. Politics is run by money. Politics is run by money. More important than the vote is the money that financed the campaign. Instead of getting white folk elected, what the NAACP should be doing is building an independent black political union, not a party, but a political union when all the black votes are locked together into one strong fist, and then we negotiate with the Democrat and the Republican Party for the concessions that they're going to give black people in exchange for our votes. Money. When you start financing the campaigns of black political officials, they will start being loyal to black people. You know why? Because they can't exist without your money. Money runs politics. Politics does not run money.
Dr. Johnson, I think you just made the statement that you think it's done in politics. Our democracy has been sold, bought, and passed by money. And the money right now is that 1% controlling both parties, all parties, and the world. So until you can take the money out of politics is when you can get back in the game.
No, sir. Wrong. We ain't got to take the money out of politics. We need to use our money as leverage within the political game to get something done. Black people are voting, but they're not using their money as leverage. The reason no politician ever does anything for black folk is because we do not finance in an organized form any of their campaign. If you have a black man running for mayor in Oklahoma City, if that black man's campaign is being funded by the Democratic Party, he's going to sell you out. I don't care who he is, how he talks, where he was educated from. I don't care who his cousin was, whether he was related to Martin Luther King. I don't care. He is a sellout waiting to happen. You know why? Because the black community did not finance his campaign. The only way we can hold black elected officials accountable is if our money puts him in office. You can't let white money elect a black man and then ask him to turn around and carry out a black agenda. The hand that pays is the hand that rules.
And how many of the black community funding at this particular time? How many of them are they funding?
Mr. Pruitt, hold on. And on that note, even when it is paid for by black constituents in smaller races, you know, your smaller districts where, you know, the money is fundraised through black constituents. The leaders, which goes for these churches, which is why I did a show last week saying, does the church pacify the people of God? The pastors that pimp the people and say, you know, I'll get my church to vote this way or that way if you supply this, resource to this grant and so forth. The organizations like Urban League, NAACP, and the politicians that pimp those votes. So even when it is being financed from black people on a smaller level, it is the leaders, the black leaders that are involved, that negotiate on our behalf, that sell us out on our behalf, that have the mentality of, as long as we just be okay with getting a little bit, we'll be all right down the long haul. It's a slave mentality. And it's so sad that we can't even see that it's better for you to stand alone rather than link up with it. And I tell Ms. Pruitt this all the time. If you're tired of having to stand up for the NAACP, then stand on your own. All the things that you're doing, you can do on your own. That's why at the beginning of my show it says unbossed, unbought, unapologetic, unscripted. Nobody can tell me what it is I'm going to do. I don't have to stand behind a fraternity or a sorority. I don't have to stand behind a politician. I don't have to stand behind a mayor. I don't have to stand behind a church or a deacon board. I stand alone solo. So if you really want to do what it is that you want to do and not have to stand up for a bunch of foolishness, stand on your own. And until we start having that independent mindset, we will always continue to be victims, a part of a society. I believe in private funding. Mr. Pruitt believes in government funding. We argue about that all the time. We talk about, the government resources are available.
You get the funding from anywhere. Ain't no one place fit all. You get the funding anywhere you can get it.
But it's the see, once again, you see, Mr. Johnson, you see what I got to deal with on a daily basis. He say take it anywhere you can get it, but all money ain't good money though. He's not getting it.
Well, that ain't no question. That ain't no question.
The revolution will not be financed by the oppressor. And at one point, a serious conversation has to be had about the white financing of black organizations. They finance to control. Everyone knows that. In fact, there's a book that was written by white folks that talks about just that. It's called The Revolution Will Not Be Financed, and it talks about how capitalism and racist America has controlled the progress of all progressive movements by financing those very movements. It was a strategy invented by the Rockefeller family who can do it much more effectively.
And can you speak on, because we had this discussion on the relevancy of the NAACP, and you mentioned on how it was started by white people, and it's something that Mr. Pruitt, and I've heard other leaders, kind of brag about when you say, when people say, well, it's not about just black people. They love saying, and Mr. Pruitt even said, well, it's not financed. They love saying it's not financed by black people. It was started, or not financed. It was started by white people, and then I had a caller, Kalo Black from D.C., that said, okay, well then why is it called the advancement of colored people? And they went back and forth because Mr. Pruitt's position was it's a good thing that it was founded by white people that had our interests. Can you express what it was founded on and how that same ideology, whether he understands it or not, plays into today and the importance of how it was founded?
In fact, one of the reasons that the NAACP chose the word colored at the time is because they wanted to focus more on the upper-class, light-skinned bourgeoisie population of black folk who were having a difficult time gaining segue and integration into the mainstream white America world. That's why it was the National Association for the Advancement of Colored, not Negro, which was the popular term at the time, or not even black. They chose colored on purpose to show the biracial nature of the organization. And that's why when you look at NAACP presidents throughout history, the national president, not local, because they don't care about the local except to get money from y'all to keep on funding the national office. But when you look at the national presidents, many of them have been extremely light, bright people, or they have been biracial. And that is not to say anything against the biracial African. I want to be clear, because as far as I'm concerned, if you got a black mom or a black daddy, you African. I don't care if your other parent white, you still one of us. And light-skinned blacks are still blacks, dark-skinned blacks. I don't play the color game, but we got to recognize that we live in a society that is based on a color hierarchy. And the NAACP's role has always been about helping the blue vein society and the well-educated black elite gain acceptance into the white world. They have never been about the underclass. Never. If you go to an NAACP convention, they never talk about everyday issues affecting black people. In fact, the urban league invited me. It is so true. It is so true.
I got one question for you. One question for you. When was the last time you went to an NAACP national convention? I rest my case. That's my point. That's my point.
Hold on, Mr. Pruitt. You're talking over him, Mr. Pruitt. He's talking over. Let him answer his question. And before we answer this question, let me before he answers the question, because he's talking over. Let me say that Mr. Pruitt is light skinned, so I did want to know that.
And our president right now is a young brother, and he's darker than dark. A young brother right now that's darker than dark right now.
No. You're missing the point.
But it's okay. You're missing the point.
It's not
I'm
about
light skinned
you being
too,
light.
but I want you to.
Green eyes. That's not the issue. The issue is that organization that you belong to, if you study the history and the color of it, it has always been about the super tan blue vein movement. It has never been about the nappy head blue, black, purple movement. It has never been about the ghetto. And anybody who knows NAACP history, and I know it well, knows that one of the biggest criticisms of the NAACP is it does not address the needs of everyday black folk. It is a bourgeois movement.
Well, we disagree, and it's okay.
How are you going to disagree? That's fact. That's historical fact. Now, locally,
that is not. That's why I asked you the question. Was the last time you attended one?
But why?
He said a couple of years ago.
Organization. Why are you
Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania this year? You need to be there.
Organization. Why are you defending a white-founded, white-funded organization? It makes
real simple, because we are established to tear down the walls of racism, discrimination, and prejudice.
You really think that racist
economical,
white
and
woman,
social
Mary
agenda.
White Overton, when she started the NAACP in 1909, do you really think it was about tearing down the walls of racism? When you study her history, you'll find out that she supported
lynching. It was lynching. It was established to stop the lynching.
That was the express purpose, but the true purpose of it was to give some token.
Oh, you're gonna give it another purpose.
Progress, so they could control the masses. Listen,
give it another
people
purpose.
are controlled by the information they are given by the elitist, educated, bourgeois group of Negroes. We looked at Al, we looked at Jesse, we looked at all these national leaders because the educated class is the class that the power structure uses to keep the ghetto under control. And the only way you stay a leader in the white world is if you can show them you can control the masses of black folks.
Do you think Al or Jesse, anybody control black folks? They don't. And they never have. Martin Luther King didn't control black folks.
Their influence over the masses has been significant. Now, it has been waning recently, which is why you're going to see a whole new group of bourgeois leaders come forward, because Jesse and Al and most of these guys, they don't have the type of influence over my generation as they have over your generation. But don't worry about that. That's why the white man is working on a whole new group. President Obama was the first one. Most black people drunk that Obama Kool-Aid and didn't get nothing for it. And here we are in the last year, and we throwing up, vomiting that Obama Kool-Aid because we see Obama didn't do nothing for black folk. But I'm willing to bet that you was one of the main ones out there running around talking about vote, 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 and never had a conversation with the man that she was
we're still saying vote.
We don't never say black folks. We don't need votes. We need economic empowerment. We don't need votes. We need political empowerment. We don't need none of that. You don't see Chinese
none of that gonna be established without
Arab people trying to be president. You don't see East Indians trying to be president. Why don't Chinese people try to become president of the United States? Because they realize when you have a solid economic foundation, you have the power to influence the people in office. You don't have to be the person in office. You just have to have the power to influence it. We don't need no black president. We don't even need a black governor. We need black power to control the president and the governor.
Absolutely.
Change your paradigm.
That ain't even no argument. We need black power.
It's played out. The NAACP is played out, and the Urban League is played out. And that's why young black folk don't pay attention to neither one of them organizations. Y'all almost as outdated as the black church.
That's kind of like the doctors nowadays. The doctors got a platform. You got a platform. Who's played up then?
Okay, but nobody. Right. But that's why we're trying to sit you down.
What is your church for black folks? What is your church?
I say, who's played up? Who's played up since those are played out?
No, listen, no. You're missing the point. It's time to sit you down so that we can play up the message, turn it up. And that's why I'm trying to get to these calls. I got about 15 calls. People going crazy trying to get on this line. They're trying to sit you down.
Go to the call.
So that we can move forward. I'm gonna take this call. Area code 612 last 5492. You're on the line. If you're just listening, just say you're just listening. Area code 612. Okay. Are you there?
I'm a Dr. Umar supporter, and that's all I want to say. This is Angel Flying Horse, and I think he's doing a great job.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you, Queen. I appreciate that.
Let's go to the next call. Area code. Let me pick up some calls. Area code 313. Last 40048. You're on the line. Area code 313. Last 40048. You're there. Are you there? Okay, let me go to the next call. And again, if you're just listening, just say a lot of people are listening, can't drive and listen to it online. Area code 51561. This is like that's out of Florida. Last 44378. You're on the line.
Yes, that would be me. This is Leslie. Oh, my God. Whoever that is that said that the NAACP is played out and the black church is played out, he is so on the money. They are so played out. They contribute to black people being on the plantation. We are so on the plantation. The NAACP is so on the plantation, and the white people want to keep us that way. You know, they pay these organizations off to keep us where we are. We have no power, and he's right. We need economic power. Who the hell cares about who's the president? The president has absolutely no power to do anything. He's been in office for almost 8 years now, and what has he accomplished for the black people? We're still in the absolute same position, if not worse, than we were before he got there. I mean, Teslin, you know me. You know I've been fighting about everybody in Florida here.
You're going to come out of depression. You got health care. You're trying to raise minimum wage. I am a Democrat. I am an absolute strong Democrat. But who have I been fighting the most? The Democrats. They don't do anything for us. I've been fighting them the hardest. I've been fighting black people the hardest, telling them you need to wake up. You need to stand up straight. Our backs are so bent because you have white people riding our backs. And you have to stand up straight before you can accomplish anything. It's like, we're still on the plantation, and we've got to get off of it. And the NAACP, and, sir, I know, I've talked to you before, but you have got to realize you guys are outdated. You are outdated. I'm sorry. You just are. It's okay for you to feel that way. We deal with problems every week, and we fix problems every week. And as long as we're doing that, we will never be outdated.
What problems have you fixed?
We're regular. We deal with unemployment. We deal with promotions. We deal with incarceration.
Unemployment rates are still double everybody else's. So what unemployment have you fixed?
I'm dealing in Oklahoma City, and it's happening nationwide. Bottom line, you made some accusations concerning your president. It was more black folks that didn't have health care that have health care now. He is attempting to try to raise minimum wage. We're regular, ma'am. Nothing personal.
What unemployment have you fixed? We're gonna take
when we say unemployment, we're talking about folks getting dismissed from their jobs unjustly, unfair, and unequally. That's what we're talking about here.
But wait a minute, Mr. Pruitt. You're talking about people getting dismissed from their jobs. Are you aware that half the black men in America are unemployed? You're talking about Obama fighting to improve the minimum wage. What good is the minimum wage when you don't even have a job? Half the black men in the country can't even find work.
I got a question for you, doctor. My question to you is that he attempted to try to pass policies and put things in place on the national level for a national job.
Hold on, Mr. Pruitt. You're talking over him and people can't hear on the line. So just...
he is attempting to try to put forth an effort for national job movement with all the white folks y'all claim was giving somebody some money.
Job movement. We need a black job movement. It's not the nation that's unemployed. It's black people who are unemployed.
If black folks was in a position to hire you, they'd hire you.
We've been hit the hardest with the economy. Anytime you try to solve a black problem by blending it in with a white issue, we lose because white racism and white privilege dictates that the jobs are going to go to the white folk before they ever go to the black folk.
Absolutely.
And if white folks ain't got jobs and black folks ain't got jobs, ain't none of you got no job.
But guess what? We're not talking about the white folks. We're talking about the black folks. Hold on one second. Let me interject on this, Leslie, because I want to introduce who you are so that Dr. Johnson can have a full understanding of why you called in. First, I want to just say you are really on time, Dr. Johnson. We are going to embrace you and publicize what you're doing as much as we can through our networks because this is a beautiful marriage that just happened to take place because of you coming to Oklahoma City. But my political background and where I've heavily been involved is in the state of Florida. And you're absolutely right. And I'm going to go ahead and say it, and I don't mean to throw anybody under the bus, but I just got to say it. I was a graduate of Congressional Black Caucus Boot Camp, and when the issues came up about police brutality, and we were on a conference call, and great guy, we had a white guy who graduated from Congressional Black Caucus that chimed in and said, we can't just make this about black lives. It has to be about all lives. And the leaders of of that phone call and of that organization who were 60 plus said, well, you know what, you're right. We could broaden it. If we broaden it, it'll make it easier for everybody to get involved. And the other leaders, the other people who I say Step and Fetch and Coon went right along with it because it seemed so much easier to have the fight with everybody involved instead of fighting for our own. And I was the only one that said, I thought this was a Congressional Black Caucus that deals with the black issues. And why is it that the leaders are allowing this type of conversation? It's not about saying we need to be separate. It's about saying who is going to fight for our issues if nobody fights for our issues. And so I had to remove myself.
Not only that, Queen, sorry to cut you off. Let me add this so your listeners understand this clearly. The white man is clever. He knows that he cannot keep operating under a strong fist of white racism against black people. So he now has to hide his racism under another agenda. That is the multicultural agenda. In other words, he doesn't have to hire more white people than black people. Now he's going to hire more Mexicans than black people. He's going to hire more Chinese than black people. He's using the other colors, other ethnicities, and the other cultures as dummies, if you would, as pawns in this game to help create a underclass of black folk. And they're trying to convince black people that they have to be for all people, because if you accept a multicultural identity, if you bury the black agenda, it means we get lost in the sauce amongst Asians and Koreans and Arabs and white women and gay folk and everything else. And that dismisses the unique character of the black situation in this country. Homosexuals wasn't enslaved. Mexicans wasn't enslaved. White women wasn't enslaved. They weren't in Jim Crow. It wasn't a crime for them to get an education. They're not the ones being genocided out of existence by white police. Black people are. So the worst thing we can do is let the governmental propaganda influence us to adopt a multicultural agenda. We are black, and we must stand on a black agenda, because multiculturalism is death to black people. Multiculturalism is death to black people.
Absolutely. And let me just introduce to you what Leslie does there in Florida, because you are absolutely right. And I say this all the time. The Democrat Party, you know, the largest tent of most diverse people, want you to believe that all of our struggles are the same. And like you said, we're all of African descent. I still claim my Hispanic side because I just do, but I'm still a black woman, and I'm very clear of understanding that the black agenda is not being addressed. What Leslie has done, and this is the reason why I'm no longer a Democrat, what Leslie has done is she has established a Democratic African-American Black Caucus, and she's in Florida. And I've watched her literally start this group of women caucus, because one of the things you just said, like when we talk about fair pay, you know, we all applause, and I'm so excited about equal pay for women, but you forget that black women are still not paid equally to white women. So I've watched Leslie take this organization from ground zero and has literally had to fight the Democratic Party all throughout this process. We just did a training for her, Senator Nina Turner, who speaks clearly about African-American issues, from Ohio. I'm sure you're familiar with her. Senator Lena Taylor from Wisconsin, that was speaking clearly about what have you done for me lately as far as the African-American agenda. And so I wanted Leslie to chime in on this, because this is a girlfriend of mine who pushes this agenda with saying, when are we going to have a clear agenda in black and white for black people, clear across the board? Go ahead, Leslie.
Well, what happens is black women, we get pushed aside constantly. When we talk about racial issues, you know, we know what is happening to our black men. But when we talk about what's happening to black women, it's even worse. So what I did was I started an organization for black women. And here in Florida, they said, oh, no, you can't do anything for black women here, especially black Democratic women. And I said, the hell you say? Yes, I am. So I've been here fighting the Democratic Party here for black women. They told me I couldn't do this, and I said, yes, I can. So I've been doing it, and I've been doing it successfully. And every time they told me no, I said yes. So I built this organization, and right now we're currently, you know, over 4,000 women strong and growing. And right now, you know, we are putting together an event this coming September at Congressional Black Caucus. We are going to have something there. But as Teslin said, we had this candidate leadership training where I had Teslin come down and participate, you know, to get black women to run for office. I mean, you know, I don't know if you're aware of this, but we have over 23.5 million black women in this country. We don't have a single black woman senator in, you know, the United States Congress. Not one. You know, we had Carol Mosley Braun, but of course she's not there anymore. We don't have a single one, and no one talks about that. You know, they come to us for our vote. You know, we're the largest and the fastest rising, you know, voting bloc in this country. We put people in office, but we can't put ourselves in office, and that has to change. And so when I'm gathering these, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I wanted Dr. Johnson to chime in on, because you are talking about the issue of black boys, and I want to know, and Leslie and I want to know, what about black women? Because we haven't been a part of a conversation on any level when it comes to police brutality. Shout out to the New York organization that that stood up for women.
What just happened in McKinney. You look at what just happened in McKinney with that
right.
police
Look at what just happened in McKinney,
in that young girl's back. So
we don't hear.
I'm looking at this. I got a daughter. I'm like, that could have been my daughter.
So, Dr. Johnson, I want you to answer, what is it about?
Sure.
And one of the issues with black women, we love our black men, and you being a psychologist, I really want you to break this down. Our love and our need to be loved because of the issues that we deal with. A lot of the people that I fight, when I challenge the Congressional Black Caucus, well, why is it you didn't include Shirley Chisholm in the history? She was the first one that ran as an African-American, as an African-American female, but you totally didn't even show her history at all. You went straight to Sharpton, Jesse, and Obama as if she didn't exist when she was the first one that had a catalyst for change. And so it was the women in the group that said, why do you keep pushing her as an issue? And it was because they needed the applause and support of the brothers to say, that's right, stand for us. So I see a lot of black women, particularly, I'm just going to be real, women who need attention from black men, need to feel that they have to show that we're in support of you because of how black women are demonized. So it's a lot of times that black women are afraid to stand up for ourselves, and we're afraid to be called angry. We're afraid to be called loud. We're afraid to be called
angry.
I told Leslie to the people that were training, be who you are. They told me to change, and I say be who you are. And the reason why, I'm not talking about Leslie and I because we're very different, but the overall masses, Dr. Johnson, with black women are being afraid to stand up for ourselves and also stand up for black men. Why is it, from a psychological standpoint, black women have been erased out of the conversation?
Okay. A couple of things. Number one, we got to recognize something right from the beginning, and that is that there's a war on the black family right now. And that dictates that the black man must see the black woman as an ally, and vice versa, the black woman must see the black man as an ally. We rise and fall together, not as separate groups. Everything that we must fight for, we must do it collectively. That is not to say that there's not sexism in the black community, because there is. There's sexism in black organizations where black women are not allowed to show their leadership skill, where they're only used as secretaries or cooks or minute takers or just for sexual favors or what have you. So the black community definitely has to face its sexism issues, because white black men, having been indoctrinated and socialized by American culture, are just as sexist as white men are, because they're the ones who trained them. But I would also have to argue on the other side that black women can also be as condescending towards black men as white women are, because they trained them as well. And so when we look at issues like the psychoacademic war, when people ask me why do I focus on the males, I focus on the males only because in that avenue, the oppression is 50 times worse against black men. And so when you look at special ed, when you look at ADHD, when you look at juvenile incarceration, suspension, and expulsion, black boys far outnumber black girls. It's not even comparable. Same thing if you look at police brutality. You'll find that way more black men are murdered by police than women. However, I'm hearing y'all argument, and I agree with it. Just because we may not equal you guys in percentage of oppression doesn't mean we don't have our oppression. And I think it's very important that black men include the struggle of their sisters, but I also think it's important that sisters include the struggle of their brothers. And I think where we're both messing up on both the masculine side and the feminine side is we are discounting the other struggle. Black men don't speak up on the oppression of black women. We assume that because they out-hire us, and we assume that black women per capita, since they have more education than black men, that they're necessarily at a better space. Black women suffer the same white supremacy that black men face, and we need to accept that. And on the flip side, black women have to understand as well that the black man's predicament isn't totally of his own doing. It's not just that he's a lazy, shiftless Negro. He wants to work. I get emails from black men every day begging for jobs because they don't want to break the law and go back to jail. But once you get one of them felonies on your record, it's almost impossible to get a fresh start. And speaking of the NAACP and Urban League, not to beat that horse anymore, if it's one thing they really need to work on that I think would be acceptable to their white financiers, that would be creating a meaningful reentry program for black ex-offenders. And speaking of that, black women in prison, the fastest growing prison population are black women. And when you incarcerate a black woman, you ain't just locking up a black woman. You are destroying a family, because when that woman goes to jail, her children get auctioned out to the foster care system, and in many cases, they are never reintegrated once mama comes home.
Cheslin, you remember the last conversation or last show that you had when I was on there and we were talking with Mr. Pruitt, and I asked him about training programs and with the NAACP, with just what he was talking about, and he's like, well, we don't do that. We don't do that.
You know why? Because that's not a bourgeoisie issue. They don't want nothing to do with it.
The comment came out about training. We have training, but you actually, if we specifically
brought that up, and you said we don't do that.
You did say that.
You was applying me. Bottom line is, we have 20% of our board members are the youth. There is training. That's why I asked him about him.
Do you have a reentry program in Oklahoma for ex-offenders? Does the NAACP have a meaningful reentry program for ex-offenders, returning citizens, that help them get housing, education, and jobs? Yes or no?
We work directly with those entities.
You ain't answered that question.
That means
Do you have a meaningful reentry program for ex-offenders, returning citizens, that help them get jobs, housing, and employment? No, y'all don't, because that is too much of a grassroots issue, and the NAACP does not want to appear too black because they are multicultural.
And so you know, I just got to telling you a moment ago that we just went out yesterday, and when we knock doors, we check on their employment, we check their
what are your
to get to your point,
what are you
when they come up, tell us that they don't have a job. We do have an entry program that we work directly with the community in providing folks with housing and jobs. In Oklahoma City.
He's not talking about hold on. He's not talking about knocking on a few doors. When he says program, he means a real program that you can go to right now. Just kind of like if I say, do you have a program that sit down black politicians? Yes, blackout2016.com. You can sign up there. You can pull your manager. Do it. It's a social media awareness program. It's not a program in the sense of what Dr. Johnson is talking about, but I'm trying to give you an example of what it is, what he's looking for. He wants to know in Oklahoma, which has the highest incarceration rate, like the numbers you just said, for black women all over the country, that I watched my entire generation with the war on drugs lock up an entire generation of black men and black women. Is there a real program? We're not talking about working directly with nobody. We said a real program that actually says this is what we're doing, this is what we've done, the numbers, the stuff.
No, we work directly with program. No, we work directly with program.
Okay, that one we didn't say work directly. It wasn't about work directly.
Well, that's my answer.
Have one.
That's my answer. So in other words, my example, if somebody contact us concerning that issue, we take them to all of the steps to get those issues addressed.
No. It's a program. He wants.
And so now that reflects right back on a moment ago how your young lady that you got on the phone a minute ago about she's working with the Democratic women. He just got to saying the Republicans and the Democrats are pimping both.
No, she's not working with them. You didn't hear what she said. You didn't hear what she said. She said she's fighting against them. No. You're getting confused, Mr. Pruitt. I know you're trying to.
What is her title?
The Democratic.
She's on the phone. What is she established?
I just told you what she established, and she's not working with no Democrats. She's working against them.
What is she established? What is she established?
Are you not listening? Hold on. Let's not worry about this.
I'm going to ask the question. All that requires is an answer.
Wait a minute. No. We're not. The question was not to Leslie, because Leslie just did what Leslie do, and I'm doing what I'm doing, and Dr. Johnson doing what Dr. Johnson doing. We're not part of NAACP. You're the one part of the NAACP. You're the one part of NAACP. And the question was, is there a reentry program? Shout out to Tia right now in D.C. who did a reentry conference that I helped her facilitate, get some poets there and so forth in Washington, D.C. Former felon who actually did something about it, who helps people get employed. I employed felons in my job that I paid, like when he said where the money makes the difference, I wrote the checks, I signed them so I could hire whoever I wanted to hire and send them directly to the city of Orlando. So now that we've been through what I've done, now let's direct it back to you. The question was, what has the NAACP done in the state of Oklahoma, statewide or local, with their own program, not working directly with nobody, because remember, you've been around for 100-plus years, so you should have the clout, the financial resources, and the positions and the volunteers to have your own program, not working with nobody. The question Dr. Johnson asked was, what has the NAACP done as far as a reentry program in the state that has more African-American felons than anywhere in the world? That's a direct question, not working directly with nobody.
My direct question is, we work directly with the organization in the area to make those things happen.
Okay,
so
but you said the question is, do you have your own program? That's what Dr. Johnson asked you. If it's no, it's no. Just say no, we need to get one. Don't try to spin it and make it different.
Okay, now Dr. Johnson asked that question. Did he have one?
No, but Dr. Johnson, he's not with NAACP.
That's my point.
Asked you.
Dr. Johnson is doing what Dr. Johnson doing. You doing what you do, and I'm doing what I do. When we have folks that need to go back into the reentry program, we have a means and a support system to make those things happen. But do I have one? No, I do not.
Okay, so you got the answer. Dr. Johnson,
that's the NAACP
does
in
not.
other words, the NAACP is not in the business of building institutions for black folks. You know why? Because they're funded by white folk, and the white folk want to keep black folk dependent on them, because as long as you're dependent on white folk, they control how much ground you cover and how much amount of time. The NAACP is a buffer group, a facilitator who does nothing to affect change for black folk. They exist to carry out.
We disagree. That sound like words. That's words. That's what that is.
Fact.
No facts, no legitimacy.
Can I ask you a question?
Let me take,
what institution does the NAACP have? Give me one institution that the national office of the NAACP has. Do you have a school? Do you have a clinic? Do you have a reentry program? Do you have a job employment program? Give me one institution. Y'all been around for over 100 years.
And I'm going to apply that exact same question to Dr. Johnson.
Okay.
That's 40-year-old Dr. Umar. You see how simple that was?
Okay.
You see how simple that was?
I'm going to answer you. I'm going to answer you.
Let him answer.
40-year-old Umar Johnson is in the process of building the Frederick Douglass and Marcus Garvey Academy, which will be the first school in American history designed specifically for black boys with a revolutionary economics curriculum, and we are in the process of raising money for that school. The school that we're looking at now costs $900,000, and I've raised $300,000. So we're 1/3 of the way there. We have 2/3 way to go. And if anyone would like to donate to that cause, they can send their donation. Go to the website, GoFundMe.com/Dr. Umar, DrUmar, GoFundMe.com/Dr. Umar. You can also get there through my website, DrUmarJohnson.com. And if anyone wants to work at the school, we are accepting resumes. Please send your resume to fdmgresume@gmail.com. I'm in the process of building a school. Next month, I will be hosting my first annual Dr. Umar Johnson Black Boy Manhood and College Tour. If any parent is interested in sending their son, 11 to 17-year-old, black boys only, so the NAACP don't want to be bothered with that because it's racially identified. You can register your son tomorrow through my website, DrUmarJohnson.com. We're taking them to black colleges all across the country. They will go to Dr. King's house, Dr. King Museum, Great Blacks and Wax, the Harriet Tubman Home, the Frederick Douglass Home. They will go to Tuskegee University, the National Civil Rights Museum, the Selma African Holocaust Museum, the Montgomery Civil Rights Institute. It's going to be a powerful trip. So to answer your question, I'm doing everything I can until my community helps raise enough money so I can build this school. I'm 40.
And what he's not doing,
is
under an organization.
Years old, I've made more progress towards building an institution than the NAACP has done in over 100. I rest my case.
I hear you.
Now he answered that question, Mr. Pruitt. Now let's go back to and he told you.
Excellent.
Okay, so we got what 40-year-old Mr. Johnson does. we got with 30-something, because I'm not giving my age, 30-something Tezin Figaro has done in my own little world. He's done what he's done. Now let's talk about the national organization with the NAACP that love talking about how they've been around 100-some years. They get membership all over the country. They get money all over the country. They have the influence all over the country. They have far more resources than Dr. Johnson and I have. So let's direct the question back to you, and then we're going to take some calls. The question was, again, in case you forgot, what has the NAACP done to establish an institution? I rest my case. We're going to take the next call, area code 973, last digits 9544. Area code 973-9544. You're on the line.
Hi, Dr. Johnson. I just want to start off by saying thank you so much for what you are doing and what you continue to do. I am currently a teacher at a charter school and have been frustrated for the last couple of years at the miseducation of our students. I am actually working in Harlem, and most of the lead teachers are white, and so that's been a frustration of mine. And then also kind of viewing or saying my frustration, I've now become the angry black, woman, the stereotypical woman when you speak your mind about what your frustration is and also your passion with what's going on with your community. So my question is, for people like me who haven't had much experience other than teaching and being in the school, what is the first thing that someone that's like on my level or ready to like really get involved with the community, what is the first thing that I can do or we can do?
Well,
I know you have already started.
Yeah. Being a little bit selfish, being a little bit selfish, I would love to have you help us start a chapter of the National Independent Black Parent Association where you are. That's one thing. The other thing, too, whenever you participate in a white-dominated industry such as education, you want to always start plotting your emancipation from that industry. So whether that means you're going to be becoming a homeschool teacher, building your own school, your own after-school program, you want to look for how you can make an independent contribution to those children above and beyond what you do in the classroom. And the reason why that's so important for black teachers is we have had record numbers of black teachers get fired from their job for going above and beyond the call of duty to help their children. But legally, when you sign a contract to be a teacher, you're obligated to the best interest of the school district. You are not obligated to the best interest of your parents or students, which means if they find you helping the parent against the school or even teaching black children black history that is not mandated within your district's curriculum, you can lose your job. So rather than have you lose your job before you're ready to emancipate yourself economically, I would say look for a way that you can give back to those children in the community, a black history program, a reading program. In fact, our little girls need you. I'm going to tell you now, one thing where you can really help out is to start a circle for young African princesses. That is something that is very needed because a lot of our daughters don't have positive relationships with their moms, and they need a big sister who they can process things with. So if you can start like a little girls group, a study group, or even a book club for young girls, I think that will go a long way.
Well, thank you so much for that call. I'm going to take some other calls because I have used more than enough of your time, but I think this conversation was great. Shout out to Jarrell Ali. He finally hashtag Blackout 2016. So, Dr. Johnson, you helped me push a movement tonight. When I put that out there last year, he was one of the ones who said, well, it's kind of aggressive, and I'm not. But now, as we continue to move forward, all of us in our political advocacy, and him and I were at total opposite ends during the campaign in Orlando. And now we've been able to see eye to eye on a lot of issues, and that's just what it takes, continuing to open up the dialogue. And also, again, thank you, Mr. Pruitt, for always being available, to answer these tough questions. And I keep telling you all the time, sometimes we have to stand solo. He's a part of a lot of organizations, fraternities, and organizations like the NAACP and churches. And sometimes on some of these issues like this, we just have to have the courage to stand alone and not be connected to an organization. I want to take a call, area code.
Pruitt, if I could, to Mr. Pruitt, on behalf of myself and both of my sisters who are on the line, we respectfully disagree with you. You're still our elder. We still love you. We still respect you. We just agree to disagree on certain issues, and I hope I get a chance to meet you when I'm in Oklahoma City on June the 25th. Go ahead, Queen. I'm sorry.
Yes, you will. Yes, you will.
Oh, absolutely, he will. And I love him. We go back and forth with this every day, and he actually is a soldier in the struggle. He really is. But again, when you're in that role as president, he has to solidify his organization, and that's why I'm not in any organization because I want to be able to stand on my own. Area code 612, last digits 5492. Last 4 digits 5492. Did you have a question? Area code 612. You guys may just be. Oh no. Let me get it back. Okay, I may have already gotten her. Area code 646. Last 48610. Last 48610. You're on the line.
I'm just listening, but I just wanted to thank you. Keep up the good work.
Thank you so much. Okay, well, I think I've ran into all of your time. I have a couple of lines that are not identified. I don't know if they're calling private or not. Might be one of your associates. They've been listening the entire time, but you call private. If you do have a question, you are on the line. If you want to say hello or anything to speak on. Okay. Well, our producer, when we do the show on the 17th, it'll run a lot more smoother with my producer being available to take calls and filter. I want to thank you so much for your time, Dr. Johnson. I think this conversation was just wonderful. I've been getting texts and inboxes and messages trying to keep up with Twitter and Facebook on the dialogue that was absolutely necessary. Again, want to give a shout-out to one thing that Ohio Senator Nina Turner says, is that it takes all of us, a part of the conversation. But we must challenge black leaders, elected leaders, as well as members in leadership, and it's not about criticizing and ridiculing. It's about speaking truth to power. And so until we continue to do that and continue to have these types of conversations, we'll keep going further behind. So I do want to thank everybody for listening, and I want to give another reminder that Dr. Johnson will be in Oklahoma City on June 25th, debuting his book and giving a power lecture. He mentioned he'll be going over, run that by, because you mentioned quite a bit that you'll be doing it, and I want to make sure they understand and the price of the tickets. Mm-hmm.
Definitely. Primarily, it will be a Black Parent Boot Camp. I'm going to teach on special ed law, regular ed law, school process, due process, all the rights of parents. I'll have copies of my book there, but it's going to be a teach-in. You'll be allowed to ask any questions. Parents dealing with issues with education and mental health, they should bring those questions with them on Thursday the 25th at Metro Technology Center, Spring Lake Campus, 6 to 9, doors open at 5. We're going to talk about male-female relationships, the illusion of inclusion, the state of the black community, disorganization, the role of the black bourgeoisie, how certain churches, certain elected officials, how certain blacks in the media, certain blacks with capital, and certain blacks with titles and status use that privileged position to keep black folk in check as opposed to using it to advance their situation. So anyone who would like tickets, they can either go to my website, drumarjohnson.com. The tickets are $20. 12 years and under are free. If you're bringing a group, please email me, drumarjohnson@yahoo.com, or you can go straight to Eventbrite and purchase the ticket at princeofpanafricanism.eventbrite.com. But everything is there on the website, and I want to remind your parents, every Tuesday morning, I have the Black Parent Teleconference every Tuesday from 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. They can call me and ask any question they want about their child, and they'll get free advice. And tomorrow, they'll be able to go to my website again and click on the princeofpanafricanism.eventbrite.com link, and they can register their son, 11 to 17, for the first annual Dr. Umar Johnson Pan-African Manhood and College Tour for Black Boys. I'm so much looking forward to that. It looks like the cost is going to be about $800, but the trip actually costs more. It's about a $1,500 trip, but I've been able to use money from my lecture events to help keep the cost down for our parents. There will be a tour from the north, New York, and a tour from the south, Atlanta. And you'll be able to fly your son, bus your son, or drive your son in if he doesn't live in New York or Atlanta for the start of that tour. And don't forget to go to GoFundMe.com/Dr. Umar, make a donation to the school. And the last thing is my new cell phone app. My new cell phone app is ready for download. I don't have the Apple. If you have an iPhone, That app is not ready yet. But if you have an Android phone, go to Google Play and do a search for the Dr. Umar Johnson app, and you can download my app. It's free, and you can stay up to date with me. You can text me messages, link to my social network, and I'm just hoping that the app will help people keep up with me and with what I am doing. And if you want to go to Africa with us, we're going to Egypt and Ghana, July 23rd to August 6th. And if you're interested in going with me to Egypt and Ghana, go to dreamertours.com, dreamertours.com, and get registered.
Oh, wow. Well, that's an impressive rundown. I don't think I could have did that any better than you. I do want to take, because I'm getting the inbox from Tia in Washington, D.C., who does the reentry program, and she just desperately wanted me to pick up the line. Are you there, Tia?
I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. We got a couple of minutes, and I need to wrap up, but I did want to pick you up because we were talking about reentry, and I know you have just some quick feedback on that.
Well, I just wanted to first say thank you, Dr. Umar. I have already signed up for your email list, and then you gave me the actual app to keep in contact with you. But, yes, I'm here in D.C., and I'm also interested in getting the chapter set up for the boys, because that's very, very dear to me, because my son, they both go to a chartered school, and I actually, everything that you were saying, I mean, if you go on Tesla's page, you will see I done put all kind of things out on there that was very dear to me. But I just wanted to say, yes, I actually did a conference back in March for the reentry community, because, yes, that group of people have been forgotten, and so they still have aspirations, they still have dreams, they still have hopes, and with the system that's set up the way that it is, they need us to be standing in the gap for these people and try to get them to be those black leaders back in the community. But without that mindset changing, because I heard you talk about that, the mindset, if that mindset don't change, then we'll never get to where we need to be, other than, of course, we're all working together. And, you know, I was listening to Mr. Pruitt about the NAACP on how he, you know, it's like he was tearing you out, but at the same time you were coming back. And when you were coming back with facts, and that's what it's truly about. And I just wanted to you know, get on here and say thank you very much for doing what you're doing, and I will definitely be following you and staying in contact. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to say what I needed to say, Tesla. I know this is fast, but I got so much more to say, but that's okay. I got your website. I'm on your website already anyway.
Yeah, feel free to send me an email, Queen. Feel free to send me an email. I'll also give you my phone number right now, and this is for anyone who needs it. I never answer, but if you text me, I will call you. 215-989-9858. Again, that's 215-989-9858. And it just so happens that I will be in D.C. Tuesday and Wednesday coming. I'm going to be speaking for a juvenile reentry program for juveniles. I'm going to do a conference for our young people who are in trouble with the law on Tuesday and Wednesday.
Wow.
And along with that, I was invited to be on the panel for News One Now with Roland Martin on TV One. So everyone listening on the show can watch that on national TV, TV One. I'll be on the Roland Martin show in the morning, which is called News One Now, from 9 a.m. until 10 p.m. on both, 9 a.m. until 10 a.m., 1 hour, 9 a.m. until 10 a.m., Tuesday morning and Wednesday morning on TV One, News One Now show with Roland Martin. And I'll be guest hosting Roland Martin's radio show on the Empowerment Radio Network, also on Tuesday and Wednesday, as soon as the TV show is over from 10 to 1. So TV from 9 to 10, and then radio from 10 to 1 on News One Now.
Oh, that's awesome, and I'll make sure I conclude him in the Twitter. And this is why I want to thank you so much for taking out this time, because when I was speaking to your colleague, you know, we talked about Oklahoma City being, you know, the primary focus of you and I connecting, but I expressed to her that a lot of people that support me, I've had a radio show in Florida as well as Dallas, and, you know, I do a lot of advocacy around the country, and so I wanted to make sure that those who work with me had an opportunity so that you could touch all the bases, on the cities that you're going through and so forth. So I appreciate you having that conversation. And on our next interview, which will be on June 17th, we will focus and drill more on the Oklahoma City aspect of it on KTLV 1220. But this show will also be chopped up into 2 30-minute shows, and I will re-air that as well. More importantly,
you
it will
might
also be
chop
available.
It up into 3 30-minute shows.
Right, it might be true, right. But we will certainly put this out on SoundCloud and Spreaker, and which that will go to YouTube so that people can listen to this over and over and over. I thank you for your wisdom, your courage. We have to wrap up the show now, but I just thank you for your time. This certainly went well over the time that expected, but I think it was a very, very fruitful conversation.
Yes, it was.
Mr. Pruitt,
yes,
I thank you again as well. Thank you for your courtesy and openness. And if more in the older generation, more of individuals could at least be open to the dialogue, as Mr. Pruitt is, I think we can meet a little bit closer in the middle of the line. But we have to be clear with saying that these are not the days that we have to agree to disagree and push the same issue. These are the days where we have to say either you with us or you against us. Either you on this side or you on the other side.
That's
and it's okay, because everybody was never meant to get off the bus, to get off the boat on the Titanic, and everybody was never meant to be free. It is what it is. Sometimes we have to be our brother's keeper, but there's also a time that I have to be the Grim Reaper and talk about it for what it is. And that's what I do with Tezlyn Figaro on the Tezlyn Figaro radio show. I want to thank everybody for listening. I want to thank you for, again, giving your time. We will continue this discussion through Twitter, Facebook, and continue to see the feedback that we've gotten. Thank you so much, everybody, for listening. You can hear the Rewind show at www.tezlynfigaro.com. Thank you so much for everybody.
Thank you, Queen. Peace and love.
Thank you.